Welcome to Leaders Lead the podcast. We got a pretty much of a late start. So as people start joining us, I see people in different platforms. Look like the numbers are going up a little bit. Welcome to On the Record. We're powered by Leaders Lead Network and speakuniversity.org. I am Tony Taylor. This platform exists for one reason. Well, this series, it's too often elections are decided by campaign ads, headlines, and sound bites. On the Record is different. Here, candidates step away from the talking points for real long-form conversations about who they are, what they believe, and how they intend to lead. Every candidate is treated with respect, asks meaningful questions, and given the same opportunity to share their story. My hope is that these conversations will give you the information you need to make an informed decision. As you watch, please take notes, compare the candidates' answers, and decide on yourself who has earned your vote. Hey, what's up? I'm Tony Taylor. Are you here for Leaders Lead the podcast? Let's go. Hey, how did you beat me? Look, let me tell you about this podcast. We got like 5 seconds. Leaders Lead the podcast is about leadership. Not just the leader without, but the leader within. All of these leaders that I'm talking to across the country, across the world now, they have one thing in common, and that's that they have overcome some insurmountable obstacles to get to where they're at today. Come on, let's go. Hey, joining me is Kshama Sawant, a former Seattle City Council member, educator, economist, and candidate for Washington's 9th Congressional District. She became the first socialist elected to the City Council in nearly a century and emerged as one of the nation's most recognized progressive leaders. During her time in office, she took on some of the country's most powerful corporate interests, including Amazon, while leading efforts around Seattle's $15 minimum wage, renters' rights, and the Tax Amazon initiative. Whether you agree with her politics or not, there is no denying that she's had a significant impact on the political conversation in Seattle and beyond. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony.
Was my introduction, was that a good assessment on everything that you've done so far?
Yes, pretty good.
What did I miss?
No, I don't think you missed anything. It's just maybe it'll be useful to talk about how we won some of those victories. I mean, the victories that you won, you mentioned, Tony, are absolutely historic victories. The $15 minimum wage that you mentioned, we in the battle that we had with the billionaires and multimillionaires and their political servants, which is the Democratic Party establishment in the city of Seattle, we were able to win, we meaning working people and we were also able to win inflation increases. So the wage goes up automatically with inflation. And so today, Seattle's minimum wage is the nation's highest at $21.30 an hour. So that is a historic victory. And that 15 Now movement that I launched after I won my first election in Seattle, that movement went nationwide and nationally. Tens of millions of workers have won substantial wage increases that have been a crucial lifeline for them as they get pummeled by the cost of living crisis. So, the scale of the victories that we have won with one lone socialist elected office in Seattle is massive.
Wow. I noticed one thing you said that the Democrats are servants to the corporation. Can you expound on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, the economic system that we live in is capitalism, and it's not just the United States. Globally, pretty much that is the system that we all live in, billions of working people. And the system of capitalism is such that by definition, it's not that it accidentally does it or it's unfortunate that it does it. It is the system the way it is, which is that the few billionaires and multimillionaires, the richest of the rich, they become rich because their profits accumulate by denying a big share of the wealth that workers create. Workers going to work every day is what makes society run. We learned this during the pandemic. Remember when everything came to a standstill and we needed essential workers? Suddenly the working class understood, wait a second, it's not that CEO or that billionaire who's essential to our society. It's me, the grocery worker, me, the emergency room nurse or doctor, me, the delivery worker who is actually making sure that essential medical goods are being transported to the hospitals and the clinics. That is the essence of capitalism, that billions of workers like as choices, political choices. So that's why in the United States you have the Republican, the Democratic parties, and yes, there are some differences between them, but at the end of the day, they both serve the interests of the billionaires and multimillionaires. But what they want you to, what you as a working class person, what they want you to do is to remain in the stranglehold of these two parties, so that you think that you're getting an alternative. Like, so you keep yo-yoing between the Democrats and the Republicans, but really neither of them are actually standing up for you, which is why you have a situation where the rich are so rich and the rest of us are struggling to get by.
So you don't identify as a Republican or Democrat, right?
I don't. I'm an independent socialist. And I just want to be clear that when I say Democratic and Republican parties, I don't mean ordinary working people who vote Democrat or who vote Republican. That is totally understandable. I'm talking about the people who control the party and the politicians in that party. They are the ones who serve the billionaire class.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that you explained that, because when I was doing some research for this interview, that was a lot of the things that I was seeing other politicians that were saying about you, was the fact that you were self-righteous, was the fact that you're trying to get rid of the working class, was the fact that you're trying to turn our society into a communist society, which, I mean, I think it's bullshit, but what are your thoughts on it?
I think a very good starting point is to see the status quo. I mean, look at what capitalism is offering ordinary people, right? You have the richest nation in the history of humanity, America, and half of American households can't afford groceries. We are seeing an absolute crisis, the bottom falling away from the poorest households. We've seen both on the one hand, jobs becoming scarcer, and the jobs crisis becoming even more pronounced, and the cost of living going up, and rents are skyrocketing, healthcare is in shambles, and then at the same time, the meager programs of social assistance like food banks, like shelters, if you find yourself becoming homeless, all of that has been cut to the bone. Who has carried out those attacks? It's the Democratic and Republican parties. So if you hear any of these politicians from either of these parties or any of the corporate lobbyists, if you hear them saying that I'm somehow against the working class, what they're doing is straight up lying to you. Because if you look at my whole track record on the Seattle City Council, I was on the City Council for 10 years. And like I said, within 6 months of me taking office in my first term, we had won the nation's first major city $15 minimum wage. That immediately lifted the poorest 100,000 workers in Seattle out of poverty. I mean, this is huge. It is a massive, massive improvement in living standards. It is absolutely not enough, because that was 12 years ago. That was in 2014. That was 12 years ago. And we need to fight for far more. That's why in my congressional campaign right now, I'm fighting. My campaign is calling for a $25 an hour national minimum wage, which I think should be at least $30 an hour in big cities. And so we are talking about living standards that have really cratered as far as the working class are concerned. But compare our track record to the track record of the Democrats and Republicans in Washington, D.C., just to give you a comparison. In 2014, 12 years ago, we, with my one socialist elected office, we were able to make history by winning the nation's first major city $15 minimum wage. And like I said, we won inflation increases. And so the wage is now $21.30 an hour. And also, like I said, it immediately lifted the bottom 100,000 workers out of poverty, and many of them are, disproportionately Black or other people of color. So, it really, really was a lifeline for some of our most marginalized communities. Compare that to what the national minimum wage is. You know what the national federal minimum wage is today?
What is it?
$7.25 an hour.
That's how much it was when I was 17 years old.
Exactly. It hasn't budged. And the minimum wage for tipped workers is $2.13 an hour. So 13 cents an hour. It is an absolute disgrace, and it's an indictment of the politicians of these two parties, that they keep telling us, just elect one more Democrat, just elect one more, and let's get the majority. What have they done? What have they done with all these presidencies and with all their majorities? They have not even put forward a higher minimum wage. And look at what we did with one lone socialist elected office. We immediately won the nation's highest minimum wage. And like I said, it didn't remain confined to Seattle, because that's in the nature of working class victories under capitalism, Tony, is that when the working class wins victories in one city or in one region, it becomes contagious, because working people elsewhere are inspired. And so what happened was tens of millions of workers, since we won in Seattle, have also won minimum wage increases. And, like I said, their living standards have improved, which is not enough. But my point is, this is how you win, by using an elected office to mobilize working people, which is what I did. I didn't make backroom deals with the Democrats. Instead, I turned my office as a vehicle of building social movements. That is the only reason that we were able to win. And then in addition to the Amazon tax, we also won unprecedented renters' rights.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of questions when I told folks that you were coming on the show. They wanted to know how you were able to do that, and also what would be your plan if you were elected for Congress to raise the federal minimum wage rate.
Yeah, when we ran for city council, ran for city council in 2013, and I say we because my fellow socialist and I, we have a different model of politics, which is that our campaigns were never about my career. So when I ran in 2013, I didn't run on my personality or my personal narrative, or elect me and then I will make my career.
You're supposed to do it, right?
Was that?
I said that's the way you're supposed to do it, right?
That's the way. Yeah, that's the way 99% of the politicians do. But we are here to build working class movements. For us, the election itself is not an end in itself. It is a gateway to build movements. So our whole objective was that whether we win or lose that 2013 campaign, we were going to build momentum for the $15 minimum wage. So we made that our flagship demand. Like when you see candidate yard signs, you only see their name and nothing else. But our yard signs, Tony, in 2013 said $15 an hour minimum wage. So that was the main thing you took out of it. And our appeal to working class people was that if you want to win $15 an hour, then we need your vote and we need you to become part of the movement. That is how we were able to win that election despite being the absolute underdog. I mean, I cannot tell you, Tony, how much I was mocked by many leaders, even in the labor movement, and mocked by Democratic Party politicians, by the corporate media. They went around laughing at me, saying $15 an hour is utopian, and also who is going to elect this person? She's not going to win. And we didn't allow them to phase us in any way. We don't agree with what I call gatekeepers, like that's meant to undermine you and demoralize you. We instead turn to working class people who do want to fight for something and who do want to win. You know why? For the simple reason that their lives suck and they want to fight back. They want to fight back. They are not in there for their own careers. They actually care. Most working class people, have big hearts. They care about their families, their friends, their co-workers. They want a better society. They want to live in a decent society. And so when we campaigned on $15 an hour minimum wage, taxing big corporations like Amazon to fund affordable housing, to fight for renters' rights against plundering corporate landlords, there was huge support for these demands. I remember one story. One time I was tabling with my campaign material, and this lady looked at me from a distance. She sort of locked eyes with me, and I thought, okay, here we go. She's probably going to be some right-wing person who disagrees with me being a socialist and all of that. But in reality, what ended up happening was that she came up to me and said, "Are you for real?" And what she meant was, do we really have a campaign where it's not about the candidate and it's not about personal narratives and it's not about your career, and you're actually fighting for something, you're actually standing for something, and you are urging people to fight around it? She had never seen such a thing before. Such a campaign was not seen before. And but what ended up happening is we energized people into action, and that is why it is because we made $15 an hour the flagship demand of our campaign that we were able to win. We defeated the most powerful Democrat in Seattle that year in that election. And then immediately after, all the Democratic Party operatives, telling me, "Oh yeah, it's great, you're an activist, but now you need to govern." They use that word a lot. You need to govern. So you need to sit back and learn from the veteran Democrats. You know what? All of this is rubbish advice, because I was not there to govern an unjust system. I was there to disrupt politics as usual and mobilize working class people into action and win some victories that have never been won before. And that is why as soon as I was elected, I launched the 15 Now movement. As soon as I took office, in 2014, I launched the 15 Now movement. And then what we did was we had democratic action conferences, meaning mass meetings with hundreds upon hundreds of just regular working people. You didn't need to have any influence or anything. You could be a retiree, you could be an unemployed person, you could be a person, whether you were a barista or a nurse or a tech worker, it didn't matter. If you wanted to fight for something alongside your fellow working class people, you were welcome at those action conferences. So it was a very, very democratic movement, but that was also our strength, because the one thing, Tony, the one thing that the billionaires fear is working people in getting organized together. If as long as we are all alone, atomized, demoralized, thinking this system sucks, but what can I do? As long as we're stuck doom scrolling and all of that, they don't care. But if we get angry and we get organized, that is what poses a threat to them. That is how we were able to win the victories that we won in Seattle, which is by me using my office to the most. And that is what scares the Democratic Party politicians also, because what they do, what they want you to do is to, even if you ran your first campaign as a well-meaning person, you had all these demands, what they want you to do is to forget all that once you win and then become part of the cozy club of politicians. And what they found out about me was that they were never going to buy me with anything. And so then they turned their anger against me. Just to share one anecdote, a few weeks after I took office, two of the most powerful Democrats in City Hall came to my office, sat me down, and said, "It's all well and good that you rabble-roused your way on to the Seattle City Council, but we are here to tell you that City Hall runs on our terms, and you're not going to win any minimum wage, let alone 15. And less than 6 months after that, we had won 15. And every single one of those council members, including those two, were forced to vote yes. The reason they were forced to vote yes, even though they hated every moment of it, was that we built a movement big enough that put the spotlight on each individual council member. In other words, what we did, and this is an essential component of the question that your viewers are asking, how did we win? An essential component of winning in the context of capitalism is to put a personal price tag for every politician's career, because most of these politicians are careerists, and they're not going to do anything for working people as long as they can get away with it, meaning as long as they can appear like they care for you, but not actually do anything for you and keep the billionaires happy. That's what they want. What we did was we, as I said, created a price tag, meaning we created a momentum in such a way that there was no way that you could vote no on our $15 legislation and yet have any reputation as a progressive in Seattle. That is what we did. We made it so that we don't care whether you like it or not, but you're going to vote yes, because if you vote no, or you just make up a reason and you're absent for the vote, you will never be able to forget. You will never be allowed to forget that you voted against $15 an hour. That is the kind of momentum we have to generate to win victories. That is part of the fight back. And the reason I say fight back, I know some people might feel uncomfortable. They might say, oh, I agree with everything that Kshama says, but why does she always talk about fighting? Why doesn't she get along? I think, and we can talk more about that, but just to say one last thing is that, look, we have built massive unity among ordinary people. That is how we won, because the billionaires don't fear me alone. What they feared was me organizing tens of thousands of workers together. That is what they feared. And how could I possibly have built unity among tens of thousands of people unless I knew how to build unity, unless people agreed with me? So it is actually not accurate to say, it's a falsehood when people say, oh, she's isolated and she's not nice. I mean, that is all nonsense. What we have done is me being nice to the people who need me to be nice to them. I am not nice to the billionaires. I don't make any secret of that. I wear their hatred of me as a badge of honor. But you know who does like me? Is all those thousands upon thousands upon thousands of working class people who need their lives to improve and who want a fighter and who want fighting movements. So in other words, whether you like or not, don't like, that is not like an abstract notion. In the context of capitalism, it all depends on class. If you are nice to the billionaires and multimillionaires and their political representatives, then you're automatically not nice to working class people. And if you're nice to working class people, the billionaires don't think you're nice. So you got to make your pick, and I've made my pick. I want to be nice to working class people.
Sounds like a damn good pick. And I'm curious as to why are we tricked as a society in thinking that if the billion and millionaires make more money, that we would make more money. And the reason that I'm asking you this is because I've talked to people here in Lacey, Olympia, this area, and all of these things that you're saying, they're 100% against, because the millionaires and the billionaires are going to get taxed more. But for some reason, we're kind of like, almost like we feel sorry for them kind of thing, and thinking that we're going to get hooked up.
Yeah, that is a very essential component of the capitalist system ensuring its own survival, meaning that when you have a system like I described, where the vast majority of people are getting screwed over and we're not benefiting from the system, the people at the top, one of the ways in which they maintain stability in their system and keep us, the millions of us who are at the bottom, keep us from revolting, is by constructing these fantasies about the way the system works. So all these rags to riches stories, like we're all temporarily impoverished millionaires. That's the idea we're supposed to proceed from, right? Like don't hate on the rich people because one day you might become rich. I mean, that is, yeah, sure. I mean, one or two people can become rich, yes, but statistically, that's a bizarre idea. Statistically speaking, the overwhelming majority of us are never going to be rich. In fact, our living standards are spiraling downwards. It's the exact opposite of any hope of becoming millionaires. It's actually spiraling downwards. So many of us are, effectively, given the cost of living crisis, poorer than our parents' generation were. In fact, statistically, this has been shown by economists that the younger generations today are the first generation in America, in modern America, who are worse off than their parents' generation. And that, that's a combination of a lot of things. The crisis of the capitalist system itself, which means that jobs are worse, the effective wages that they pay are worse, the rent is skyrocketing. People like our parents' generations, housing was much more affordable for many of them, obviously not for all of them, but for many of them. But now it has gotten a million times worse. I mean, if young people are watching this show right now, Tony, I know that they know what I'm talking about. I mean, unless you're the son or daughter of a rich guy, you know what I'm talking about. For most working people, life is extremely difficult, especially if you're a young person. I wanted to finish responding to your question, but I wanted to just quickly say that if you're a young person, or anybody in Washington State 9th Congressional District, which is the district I'm running in, please make sure you cast your ballot before tomorrow. This campaign is for you. This campaign is a working class campaign. We are fighting for free healthcare for all, funded by taxing the rich. We're fighting for national rent control, for a national $25 an hour minimum wage. We're fighting to tax the billionaires to fund a massive expansion of affordable housing. We're fighting to build a public sector living wage jobs guarantee. So these are all enormously historic victories. If we could win them, that is what I'm running this congressional campaign on. And so if you haven't voted yet, please, please, please go and vote. I was just looking at the King County elections data on who's already voted. And for the younger you are, the lower your voter turnout is. So please go out and vote, because it's extremely important, because this campaign is in your interest as young working people, but working people as a whole. But I was just going to say that all these fantasies that the corporate media creates, that, oh, capitalism is a really good system, someday you might be rich. All of this is based on falsehoods. But the reason they do that is because it's necessary for them that you buy into their lies. Because if the curtain is moved and you understand that this system is always going to screw you over, then suddenly you will want to revolt. And actually, that's already happening. So if you look at the consciousness, the thinking of younger people today, it is a far cry from what it was even 10, 15, 20 years ago. Like, young people understand that this system is screwing them over and it's not working for them. They're angry at the health insurance companies. Remember when Brian Thompson was assassinated, the CEO of United Health? There was no sympathy for those executives at all, because they are the ones who are profiting from the sickness and death of millions of people. There is no sympathy for them. And so across red states and blue states, the support for universal public health care is massive. It's huge. There's huge potential to build united movements nationally to win one of our signature demands, which is free healthcare for all, funded by taxing the rich. That is why this campaign is so crucial.
Yeah, I noticed that. I looked up the person that is the incumbent, and one thing that I noticed was a couple things. But the first thing was that he is one of the more powerful people in Congress right now. And the second thing that I noticed was I had never heard of this dude before in my entire life. The third thing that I noticed was that he's been there for like 30 something damn years. Like, what is that about? Literally, like my son is 30. That's crazy.
Yes, that's totally crazy. I could not agree with you more, Tony. In fact, we have a running joke in my campaign. My campaign is full of very young people. I mean, we have all ages, but we particularly have a lot of young people. And it's a joke. A lot of them say, whoa, this dude has been in Congress longer than I've been alive. There's so many of our campaign volunteers in their 20s. And so, yeah, it's completely outrageous. And, Tony, you're absolutely right. So many people have never heard of him before we launched our campaign against him. People had not even heard of him. But that is by design, because like you said, on the one hand, he is almost invisible to the public. But on the other hand, he is one of the most powerful people on the inside for the war profiteers. He's the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. And just to give you a sense of how powerful and high up he is, and what a general of the warmongers he is, there's two things I should mention. One is that in December, just this past December, Adam Smith co-authored. He was not just a vote, he co-authored a bill alongside the chair of the House Armed Services Committee, who's a Republican named Mike Rogers. So Adam Smith, a Democrat, and Mike Rogers, a Republican, they co-authored a bill to give Trump $906 billion for war spending.
So he wrote the bill.
He wrote the bill. And keep in mind that the Democratic Party as a whole is so rotten that the majority of House members and the majority of Senate members from the Democratic Party voted yes on that bill. It passed. So, when they go around saying, oh, Trump is warmongering, we need to do something, just don't forget, they are the ones giving the money to Trump. It is, these war spending bills are bipartisan bills. So yes, they are Trump's wars, but they are also the wars of the Democratic and Republican parties as a whole. That's how rotten this political system is. And so, but even among the Democratic Party, Adam Smith is one of the main culprits. So he is the co-author of that bill in December. But as if that was not enough, in June of this year, Adam Smith co-authored another bill to give Trump another over $1 trillion for war spending. And that bill will also fuse the US and Israeli militaries. Can you believe it? It is absolutely dystopian. And so this guy is one of the instigators of war funding. He's one of the, Adam Smith is, he is one of the 5 remaining House Democrats who voted for the war on Iraq. This was also before many people were born, young people. And so Adam Smith has the blood of 1 million Iraqis on his hands. He also has voted, he's one of the many Democrats who voted for tens of billions of dollars for the genocide in Gaza and for wars in general. He's been a really, really war happy guy, and you hardly even knew his name, and as I said, that's by design, because it's intentional, because it is better for the billionaires and the multimillionaires to have their main agents not in the public eye, because then it's easy to say, well, who knows what's doing, and I agree with your commenter, Adam Smith needs to be on trial for war crimes, really. The least price he needs to pay is to be thrown out of office. And lest people think that it is only about wars, it's not. Let me tell you, Adam Smith has also been one of the guys who has played an active role in destroying the living standards of poor and working class people. He voted for the slashing of Medicare and Medicaid by hundreds of billions of dollars back in 1997, when Trump was not even on the scene. So the attacks on Medicare and Medicaid are also bipartisan. He also, he was also one of the guys who bailed out the billionaires in the wake of the 2008 Great Recession, leaving working people in the lurch. Remember, millions of people, some of your viewers may be too young to remember that, but some of us, we were there. We saw how there were, millions of foreclosures of the homes of ordinary people. Those homes never came back to the working class. Those homes were given at pennies to the dollar by the Obama and the Bush administrations and by Democrats like Adam Smith to private equity, to Wall Street equity. And so, and also, in fact, even before the Great Recession, Adam Smith voted yes on something called the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. It's a mouthful. I always mess it up. Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. But that's important because it was one of the bills that carried out the deregulation of Wall Street banks, which then helped create the Great Recession. So it's just his whole 30-year record, Tony, is extremely anti-working class and pro-billionaire and pro-war. This guy needs to go.
Why is he still here?
That's a very good question.
Everything that you're saying is verifiable, right?
Oh, absolutely. These are all votes that you can go, online and check them.
So why is he still here?
That's a very good question. It's a very important question you asked, Tony. The reason people like him are still here is the whole story why I am here, which is that the reason they survive is because it's in the absence of any kind of real fighting challenge. Think about this, right? On the one hand, you have, if you look at opinion polls about Congress as a whole, it's hated. American working people hate US Congress. They hate both parties. They hate Trump also. Trump has abysmal approval ratings, but so do the Democratic and Republican parties. And for decades, working people have hated Congress as a whole because they can see it's a cesspool. Trump said he was going to drain the cesspool, but in fact, he is part of the cesspool. He's a multi-billionaire himself. He's a con man. But the reason he was able to con working people is not because working people are stupid, but because working people wanted desperately to believe in something in the context of them hating the Democratic and Republican parties, correctly so. And so if you look at opinion polls for years, Congress has had very low approval ratings. In fact, I remember at some point there was even a poll that says, what is more popular, Congress or cockroaches? And cockroaches were more popular than Congress, which is to say that, I mean, it's not a commentary on cockroaches, but the point is that Congress is so unpopular that you pick anything and that thing is more popular than Congress. And yet the incumbency rate, meaning if you're elected, you getting reelected, that is 95% or something ridiculous like that. So how do you explain this contradiction where on the one hand, Congress as a whole is hated, but every Congress member practically keeps getting reelected? That contradiction can only be explained by the fact that for a long, long time, there's never been a challenge to any of these people because there was a lull in movements. For 20, 30 years, there's really no mass movements happening. And a lot of the leadership and the labor movement and social movements was really corrupted, and movements were in the dormancy. But now we are in a different moment where people are in a mood of revolt. I mean, we still have a long way to go to build fighting successful movements, but it shows you that people are angry. I mean, my first election on the city council in 2013, that was an example of that. It captured the anger of the working class in my campaign. But unlike other politicians, I didn't just use their anger to get elected and then build my career. I used that anger to actually win historic victories for working people's living standards, which is the difference. It's not just about winning elections. It's about winning elections and then using the elected office to actually win something to make people's lives better, which is what we did. And that's why we also kept winning elections. I mean, I was on the Seattle City Council for a decade and I didn't win. I mean, I didn't lose any election. I won all my elections. Every single one was the most hard
to get rid of you, though. I saw that.
They tried very hard to get rid of me. In fact, that's why I was going to say, Tony, that every re-election of mine was a hard fight, but that's a good sign. I have said before, Tony, that if you claim to be, as an elected official, if you claim to fight for working people and your re-election is a cakewalk, then you're not fighting for working people. Because if you fight for working people and on top of that, you have the nerve to win something for working people, then the billionaires are going to come after you, because how would they not, And that is how it will be. I mean, capitalism is class war. For the most part, it is class war from the billionaires and multimillionaires to the rest of us, billions of workers. That is the status quo. We don't have a choice about the class war. We didn't make it so, it is so. So our choices are rolling over and accepting this accelerating race to the bottom of our living standards and our lives and our planet, because of the climate catastrophe. Or the other choice we have is to wake up and fight back, to go to class war back against the ruling class. So in other words, we either roll over and die or we go to class war back. There is no other way. There is no way that you can ask nicely to the billionaires for them to please be moral and just and do the right thing. That is not how it works. They are ruthless and they will continue to be ruthless. And so we have to decide that proudly take on this class war with pride and say, we're going to fight for the downtrodden. We are going to fight for the oppressed. We are going to fight for the exploited, which is what we have done in Seattle. But we desperately need this in Congress. I made it very clear. I am not running to be another team player on team genocide or team billionaire. I am going there. I want to go to Congress to disrupt the status quo politics and to fight for working class people. And I've pledged that if elected, I will turn my congressional inauguration into a mass rally of 10,000 people in Washington, D.C., and immediately use my office to build mass movements to end all military aid to Israel and to win free healthcare for all funded by taxing the rich. That is the only way we will ever win anything, is if we have mass movements. But I just want to keep going back to this. Tomorrow is election day. In order to advance to the November election, we need people to vote right now. If you got your ballot, don't wait anymore, please. And I'm going to say this also. I know all about procrastination. I'm a big procrastinator.
Me
you know
too.
how it is, right? I mean, it's like a stress response. Even the simplest tasks, sometimes we postpone just out of stress. I get it. Maybe your ballot is sitting on your dining table and you just can't bring yourself to fill it. But please understand, we have too much at stake here. If we can advance to the November election, then we have an actual shot at defeating a general of the warmongers and at defeating the billionaires. It will be absolutely historic. That much I can guarantee you, that if we go into the November election, it will be the most important and electrifying election in the midterms. But in order to do that, we need to be one of the top 2 vote getters in the primary, which is the election is tomorrow. So please fill out your ballot, join me in fighting procrastination and actually filling out that ballot.
Why is it? I was curious about this. I don't know if I asked you this when we spoke before, when we were talking about you coming on, but why is it that I see your opponents fighting against you instead of fighting against the incumbent? I've never really seen that before. It's almost like I seen like this cartoon of you where you were the wicked witch of the West and all of that stuff. And that's when I kind of went down a rabbit hole and I'm like, oh, I remember her. She was the person that did all of the stuff in Seattle with the minimum wage. And then I start looking at your stuff and I'm just like, man, all of this stuff makes sense. So much sense. If it happened, it definitely would make my life a whole hell of a lot easier. But why attack you and not the person that is sitting in that seat? And I'm asking you that because I'm looking at some of the people that's donating money to him, and it's kind of something ain't adding up. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's actually really telling what's happening in this race. So the starting point to understand what's happening, and I'll come to everything that you're talking about, those racist and misogynistic videos that the Republican has released, AI-generated videos that he has released. But to understand all of that, we have to first understand that neither the Republican nor the Democratic Party wants me in the November election, because they know that November election is just 2 people. Like right now, the primary is different because there are a number of candidates, which I'll come to in a second. But the November election will be a head-to-head match between Adam Smith and whoever is running against Adam Smith. And if we get into the November election, it will be a head-to-head match between Adam Smith and me. Adam Smith, arch warmongering, genocidal Democrat who has attacked working people, versus an independent anti-war socialist who has a track record of winning historic victories for the working class. And so that election is going to offer us an actual chance at defeating a leading Democrat. I mean, this would be a huge blow to the billionaire class if Adam Smith were defeated. They get it, we get it. They know and we know what's at stake. That is why for the Democratic and Republican parties and for the billionaires they represent, it is much better, and this is their best option, is if I don't get into the November election in the first place, if I'm defeated in the primaries. That is what they want. And so they have organized the race in such a way that that will best be conducive to that, which is why I'm urging everybody, if you agree that we need to defeat Adam Smith, then please vote for my campaign, because my campaign is the only chance of defeating Adam Smith. Our campaign is stronger by far, by any objective measure, than any campaign that has ever run against Adam Smith. So what the establishments have done is they are running a Democrat and a Republican aside from Adam Smith in order to try and take votes away from our campaign. So this Republican guy, who has these awful videos that portray me as the wicked witch of the West and all of that, he is Doug Basler, his name is. He has run against Adam Smith many times, and he has never come close to winning, because he's not trying to win against Adam Smith. They just run. They may just make careers based out of running. He openly admitted this year, that he was recruited into running because the establishment wants to keep me out of the November election. So that's why if it looks like Doug Basler is running against Kshama Sawant and not against Adam Smith, it's for the simple reason that Doug Basler is running against Kshama Sawant and not against Adam Smith. It's like, that is what it is. If it appears like that, it is what it is.
It makes damn sense, though.
It makes sense. No, it makes sense. It makes sense from the standpoint of the party establishments. It does, because you know why it makes sense is because they know that our campaign, my campaign, is the only chance of defeating Adam Smith. That is why they are striving to keep me out of the November election. So that's why we have to strive to get into the November election. Doug Bassler is just a formalistic candidate. Like, he does not, his campaign, there's no campaign around him. I mean, those AI generated awful videos are the only thing we see from his campaign. We've never seen anybody from his campaign canvassing anywhere. We've not seen anybody from the other Democrat, Melissa Chaudhary, from her campaign anywhere. They're not canvassing anywhere. And there's no life to any of these campaigns, but they just exist on the ballot to take votes away from our campaign. And that's why we're warning people that it is important that people vote for our campaign, because Adam Smith has had challengers, but nobody that has come anywhere close to our campaign's strength. That is why it is important we go into November.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Melissa. And I would say this, I don't want to speak for the listeners or the viewers, but people that I've talked to, they said they're either voting for you or they're going to vote for Melissa. Can you give us like some insight on that? Because it sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that like maybe you don't think that would be a good vote for Melissa.
No, I don't think it'll be a good vote, but it's nothing personal. I mean, first of all, I do have really powerful disagreements with her, and I'll talk about her campaign, and as been reported by the Stranger newspaper. So all of what I'm going to report is on the record, because this was an interview that she and I were both at the Stranger newspaper in front of the whole editorial board. So the whole thing was on record. So there's no, it's not made up, or it's not a matter of opinion. These are all facts. But before I come to that, the reason it is important that people not vote for Melissa Chaudhary but vote for our campaign is that people who are voting for her are voting because they hate Adam Smith, which is, I share that sentiment. However, as a matter of strategy, it makes no sense, because she has no chance of defeating him. I mean, I don't believe that she has any chance whatsoever of advancing to November. But even if she does, she's not going to defeat him. I mean, she was, just to give, again, these are all facts. These are not my opinion. In 2024, she did advance to the November election against Adam Smith. So she's running against him again. She was completely creamed. I mean, she got 30% or something in the November election. But the reason she didn't do well was because she went around saying things like, on most things, Adam and I agree. Well, that's not, so if you're voting for Melissa Chaudhary because you hate Adam Smith, then you're not getting the anti-Adam Smith there. If you want somebody who has a track record of fighting for working people, and you want to fight for the Palestinian people, you want to fight against the cost of living crisis, then this is the campaign to fight for. That doesn't mean you have to agree with me on everything. There's no such idea. I mean, like I said, we won every election in Seattle. It's not because everybody agrees on everything. In fact, to be honest, most of the people who vote for me identify as Democratic Party voters, and I'm an independent. So there itself, there's a disagreement, but it's not about that. People recognize that we have to unite on a principled basis to fight for the things we agree on. And we agree on free healthcare for all. We agree on taxes on the rich. We agree that the $1 trillion war budget needs to be slashed, and that money needs to be spent on housing, healthcare, infrastructure. And so one of your commenters who said, well, I want to hear what you are for. Well, I've been saying this throughout this show, that what we are for are these things that we are fighting for. But I can't do it alone. That is why we need people's support for starting with the vote, because unless we advance to November, we have no chance of defeating Adam Smith. That's why we are appealing to people to vote for our campaign now, so that we can advance to November. And then we will also be building movements. And look, my track record is it's an open book. There's nothing to hide. Whether in office or out of office, I have consistently and relentlessly fought for working class people. In fact, after I was leaving city council, after 10 years, I launched a nationwide organization called Workers Strike Back. Many of our members actually have been winning victories even without any elected office. Like, for example, in Midwestern cities, our members are everywhere across the nation. And in Midwestern cities, we have won victories against data centers. In Washington state, our members who are members of the public sector union, we have led on defeating the Democratic Party in Olympia on billions of dollars of budget cuts. So we have actual victories to show for it. When the city council in Seattle was trying to undermine our minimum wage victory in 2024, we defeated them. When the city council last year was trying to undermine our renters' rights victories, we defeated them. And we forced the council member who brought that bill, we forced her to resign. So we have huge victories. We have a long track record, and we have shown that we have the strategy to win. And that is why I'm appealing that let's be strategic about our vote. Our campaign, my campaign, is the only shot we have to defeat Adam Smith. So if you want to defeat Adam Smith, voting for anybody else other than our campaign, it's an emotional vote. You want to be strategic, vote for our campaign. And also in the stranger endorsement meeting, this was, and the stranger endorsed my campaign. But in that meeting, it was discovered that Melissa Chaudhary was not supporting LGBTQ rights because she was worried about offending a particular community. And there's been an uproar among LGBTQ, queer activists, but also people who support queer rights. The Washington State Stonewall Democrats, I believe it's the LGBTQ caucus of the Democratic Party, they have spoken out openly about that. And the 33rd Legislative District Democrats, who I think that was the only endorsement she got, I think they posted publicly that they wanted to rescind the endorsement. And so I'm only sharing this for people to know the facts and understand that this is not about liking or disliking any particular individual. Anybody can make mistakes, anything can happen. But right at this moment, with primary election day tomorrow, the strategic question is, if we want to defeat Adam Smith, are we going to actually give the campaign that has the best shot, give this campaign a chance, that campaign that has the best shot?
Say, we got a question up here for you.
Yes, I can see the question. Can you speak to what items in the Democrats' platform you disagree with? That's the question, right?
Yeah, and I was going to say I'm glad that this question popped up, because as I'm not a political guy, right? I just kind of got thrown into this year, and that's one thing that I was trying to figure out, the distinction between socialist and Democrat. I already know about the Republican, but what's the difference?
Sorry, Democrat and socialist, is that what you meant?
Yeah. Like, what are they doing? What are they not doing?
What are the Democratic Party not doing?
Yeah.
What they're not doing is fighting for working people. What they're not doing is fighting against the billionaire class. If you look at the platform, and I haven't looked at it recently, so your viewers are welcome to ask me any specific questions, like, do you agree with this or that? I'm happy to answer that. But I can just give you a general sense that it's not that the Democratic platform doesn't have things that we agree with. Of course it does, like Medicare for all. That's in their platform, I believe. I mean, at least many Democrats say they support it. I support Medicare for all. In fact, I'm fighting for something far stronger than Medicare for all, which is free healthcare for all funded by taxing the rich. And if any of your viewers want to know why I'm saying it specifically like that, I'm happy to answer that also. But what I'm trying to get at is, yeah, I'm sure there are aspects in the Democratic Party's platform that I would agree with. But the problem is that, and it would be okay if we agreed on some things and didn't agree on other things. That's fine. I mean, there's always going to be things on somebody's platform that you don't agree with. I don't expect that people will go on my campaign platform and agree with every single word of it. Sure, you can disagree with some things, but it's a question of the main things. Do you agree about the main things? But it's not only what it says on the platform. It is our obligation, in our own interests as working class people, to observe what the party actually does. So Medicare for all is a very good example. On paper, a lot of Democrats say they support Medicare for all. But what has happened? In the last 30 years, what has happened?
Nothing.
Nothing, exactly. In fact, it's worse than nothing, which is that anytime there was an effort to bring forward public health care, there was the Democratic Party's apparatus, the machinery, cracked down on it and made sure that it didn't happen. Remember, when Obama was elected, there was huge excitement about universal public health care. And what the Democratic Party did at that time, and they had the majority in both houses of Congress, they could easily have passed Medicare for all. In fact, the Democratic Party had a majority under Clinton, under Obama, and then under Biden. They had many, many, many chances to do all kinds of progressive things, but they didn't do any of those progressive things. And I'll come to Medicare for all in a second, but just to paint a picture, what did they do under Clinton? They massively expanded the incarceration system, which has been devastating for communities of color, especially Black and poor people. They eviscerated the social assistance programs, the food assistance programs, other assistance programs. They went from this program called AFDC to SNAP, which was the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, which is now again been cut to the bone by the Trump administration, but itself was cut to the bone by the Clinton administration. So there was a massive attack on poor people. And under Obama, we had the gate kept shut against universal public health care, attacks on many different nations, military attacks on many different nations. And under Biden, you had the genocide begun in Gaza. The genocide in Gaza started under Biden. And the Biden administration and the Democratic Party, they did not even repeal the Trump tax cuts for the rich, which they could have, because they had the Democrats had the majority. They could have repealed the Trump tax cuts. The Democrats under Biden could have made the Obamacare enhanced tax subsidies permanent. They did not do that. I am giving you these examples, Tony, because I want to illustrate that even small things that they could have done to make the lives of the poorest of the poor, of working people who are struggling, they could have done small things to make our lives a little bit bearable, and they refused to do that. Instead, on their watch started the Holocaust of the 21st century. This is the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party is the same, except that they're more openly anti-worker and anti-poor. So in other words, as long as working people remain straitjacketed between these two parties, it is a dead end. That is why I'm running as an independent. But coming to Medicare for all, the Medicare for all bill has been formally brought forward, like in name, 13 times to my count, maybe more times, 13 times in the last 20 years. Has it ever been brought to a vote in Congress? Never.
I think so.
Never, right? Never been brought to a vote. What happened in California? California is a very important lesson about the nature of the Democratic Party, because it has, for the longest time, it has had a Democratic governor, and the Democratic Party has had a supermajority or a near supermajority in both houses of the state legislature. What did they do? There was an effort to pass Medicare for all at the state level. It's called CalCare, California Healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
The Democratic Party crushed CalCare 4 times in the last 10 years. 4 times. The last time was just last month in June. This is the Democratic Party. That is why, yes, we should be asking what's in the Democratic Party's platform. But my point is that there are lots of things in the Democratic Party's platform on paper that working people would agree with. But what do they actually do? What did they actually do? They never fight for the working class. In fact, they have carried out attack after attack on working and poor people.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. What would you say to somebody that would say, oh, Kshama, how come you can't play nice? Maybe you'll get elected to Congress if you just kind of like get along. What is it?
Go along to get along. If you want a go along to get along Congress member who doesn't give a crap about working class people and wants to build their own career and wants to have their own cozy life, then there's lots to choose from. I'm not one of them. If you want a fighter for working class people, the people who are left behind, then this campaign is for you. And I am really proud of that. And in my view, the vast majority of ordinary people are looking for fighting movements, and they're looking for leaders who will fight alongside them. They're not looking for go along to get along politicians. You know that saying, I'm sure you've heard, Tony, something along the lines of, whenever they go bipartisan, we're getting screwed. Something like that. Because most of,
but it makes so much damn sense.
I know, it makes so much damn sense. Exactly. All the bad things that are happening to us for us are actually all bipartisan actions. And it's fine if people think this is nuts. Some people are going to think that, but the vast majority of people are looking for something to fight for.
Yeah.
And that is the only reason that we were able to win all our elections. People say, well, you can't win elections on this basis. You have to schmooze the powerful people. You cannot, you have to go along to get along. But I didn't go along with the powerful people in screwing over working people, and I still won all my elections. But it is not, it is harder to do what I'm doing, but it is the only way we can win for the working class. And ultimately, it is about your own objectives. If you are running for office and your objective is to make a career for yourself, then you're going to sell out and you're going to make it easier for yourself. But in my case, I have no desire to build a career for myself. I'm not running because I want to be a politician. In fact, to share with your viewers, the way we build our campaigns is very much is fundamentally different than the Democratic and Republican parties, in the sense that in those parties, what happens is, a given individual thinks, I want to run for office, I want to make a name for myself, I want to make a career. And then in order to make the career, then you become a cog in the machine, because that's the only way to make a career in those parties is to sell out. That is the only way. If people think that there's any middle ground where you can make a career in the Democratic Party and not sell out, that's a fantasy. Such a thing doesn't exist. You can do what I'm doing, which is not sell out, but that is not a path to a career. So just to share, I didn't wake up and one day decide I want to run for office to make my own career and I want it to be about myself. No, we are a democratic organization, and our members collectively decide what kind of campaign we should run in a given year. Should that be an election campaign? What the election campaign's program should be? Who the candidate should be, is all democratically decided. And I have to say, unfortunately for me, on a personal level, I was picked as the candidate. It was a democratic decision. It's not something I decided. And that's important because we are not careerists. We are fighting for the working class, and we are consciously signing up for the class battle against the billionaires and multimillionaires, because history has shown us is that that's the only way to win anything. How Canada, for example, won their public health care, how the Western European nations won their public health care, was through campaigns like mine, where there were militant movements, and through those militant movements, there were efforts to build new parties of the working class, and that is how they were able to win healthcare. And so we need that in the United States urgently. We need a new party for the working class. And I'm not pretending that my campaign alone can accomplish that. But what I am saying is that if we can win in November and elect the first ever revolutionary socialist to the US Congress, which is what it will be if we win our election, that will be a certain parting of the waters. It will really give huge momentum to building movements and to the idea of building new parties for the working class. And it will really give real momentum to winning victories like free healthcare. That is the only way to do it.
I was going to ask you, thank you for articulating that. I was going to ask you, AIPAC, you've made a collective decision not to take any AIPAC money. Why is that?
AIPAC is one of the most prominent Zionist lobby groups. And Zionism, I want to be clear, Zionism is the ideology or ideological framework of the apartheid state of Israel. The Israeli state is, if you look at the history, it came into existence at the behest of US and Western capitalism. The Israeli state, it exists as a sort of a garrison state to keep all working class revolt in that region at bay. And the way it conducts that business is by carrying out just absolute brutality in the region. And so obviously you have the ongoing genocide now. It has, and by the way, it has been going on. The genocide has been going on for over 1,000 days now. It is absolutely unspeakably horrific. And now the genocide is expanding to the West Bank. It's very, very dangerous. But it's not only the genocide. The Israeli state as a whole is an apartheid state, meaning that it has crafted specific policies in order to inflict brutality on the Palestinian people. That is the whole question. I mean, it's meant to carry out ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. It's not that it's accidentally happening. The policies are specifically determined in order to inflict maximum damage on the Palestinian people. So if you look at, I mean, these are very hard to watch, so I understand if people are not watching them, but just to share facts again, that if you watch the videos of some of the very courageous reporters like Jasper Nathaniel and other, there are many reporters who've gone into the West Bank and are, filming at great risk to their own lives what's happening to the Palestinian people there. The settlements by the Israeli population is absolutely horrific. I mean, it is just, their land is being seized at gunpoint. Palestinian people are literally being killed. And so all of this is happening because the Israeli state, like I said, plays a huge role in the interests of billionaires and multimillionaires who profit not only from the warmongering and the genocide, but just by the existence of the state, because this is it's a geopolitically crucial region, in terms of its location, and also it's an oil-rich region. So there's too much at stake for the billionaire class to let go of it. And that's what's happening. And that is why this is a fight against the billionaires and multimillionaires as a whole, if we want to end the suffering of the Palestinian people. So the bare minimum that you should be looking for in a candidate is, are they taking any money from the Israeli lobby groups? That's the bare minimum. I don't think that's enough.
Your candidate's taking a shitload of it.
The
person you're running against, he's taking a lot.
Oh yeah, he's taking a shitload of it. He is an AIPAC darling. They love him. If you look at the money he has taken, who else loves him? It's the war profiteering billionaires, all of them. So if you like all the, it's the billionaires in general, but especially if you look at all the corporations that profit directly from war and genocide and ICE terror, like Palantir, Lockheed Martin, Kratos, Anduril, all of these corporations are directly like war manufacturing corporations. They all love Adam Smith. And so does SpaceX, Elon Musk's SpaceX.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring him up. I was actually thinking about earlier, I had somebody on the podcast, Tim Draper. He's a billionaire. He was a original investor in SpaceX and I think Twitter and all of that. And he and I were talking about the whole thing when the Department of Defense were letting go all of those people under Doge. And I would never, ever I'll never forget this. I remember saying how fucked up it was that they were letting go those people like that. And he casually just said, well, they'll find work. Good luck to them. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I, rebuttal back. I'm just like, no, you don't think it's fucked up the way that they're doing it. It's like, oh, this is just the way that it goes. It was almost like this is the way that capitalism worked. And I think that was the first time where I was just like, damn, these people are so disconnected from us, so disconnected from me. And I'm just like, why the hell do so many people root them on? I mean, you could see some of the people, honestly, I was saying in the comments where they're like, oh, this shit is stupid, what you're talking about, I haven't heard anything that you said that didn't make sense, or I haven't heard anything that you said that goes against us normal people. And what I mean is normal, but not having millions. Why are we like this?
It's like I said before, it is because we are conditioned to think that, because the system, the capitalist class, the billionaires and multimillionaires need us to believe the system is good. They need us to believe that the people who are completely fucking us over are doing us good. They need us to believe that. And that is why, if you look at corporate media, constantly the framing of issues, the way things are presented, it is 24/7 bombarding your brain with the capitalist framing. Like there's a saying that says basically the ideas of any era are the ideas of the ruling class. Basically, those are the ideas that prevail. And when those of us who are questioning those ideas, when we go against the grain, those ideas are blacked out. So it's no coincidence, Tony, that the corporate media has completely done a media blackout on my campaign. You could hardly read about my campaign in the corporate media. It's not like, oh, it's, you hear the terms objective journalism. There is nothing objective under the capitalist class. Everything is based on class interest. That is why I'm saying that we also, as the working class, we have to be unapologetic about fighting for our own interests, and we should not accept what they one of the weapons that the ruling class uses against us is respectability politics. Talking about everything in such even tones. And so if working people get angry, the normal people get angry, you're branded as, oh, you need to behave better. You should not be divisive. I saw one of the comments also that, oh, she's divisive. No, capitalist system is what's divisive. Because it is a system that allows very few people at the top to amass unimaginable amounts of wealth and power at the expense of billions of us. That is the definition of divisiveness. So when we face a system whose status quo is class war against us, we have no choice but to go to class war back. And we have to do that proudly. And in fact, we can succeed by doing the opposite of dividing, which is uniting working class people. In fact, one of the reasons that we succeeded so much in winning historic victories in Seattle is that we were able to push back against the divide and conquer tactics of the Democratic Party and the ruling class and unite working people on a working class basis to win victories. Obviously, there will be differences of opinion and all of that. But if you look at what the system does and what the politicians who represent the system do, they are always trying to pit, black workers against white workers, immigrant workers against native-born workers, women against men. Not to say that oppression isn't real. Absolutely. Capitalism is a system that generates and thrives on all kinds of oppressions. Racism is real. Misogyny is real. We need to fight against them. And we cannot fight for the working class unless we also fight against oppression. And that's why it's not coincidental that my office in Seattle, on the Seattle City Council, was also the best fighter for indigenous rights and for black rights. I mean, we won a whole reparations program for housing that's specifically allocated to black working and poor people who were pushed out because of the racist redlining in our city. And so we can and should fight to unite working people. In fact, it's the opposite of divisiveness that we have to do in order to fight against the billionaires, because there's so many of us, there's so few of them, but they win if we all remain divided. And that is why we have to fight together. Just to give you another example, on the issue of immigrant rights, we are fighting to shut down ICE and the detention centers and to stop the deportations, and we're fighting for full citizenship rights for all undocumented immigrants. At the same time, we're also fighting for a public sector living wage jobs guarantee, because what has been happening is that whether you're native born or immigrant, we are all getting screwed over by the bosses. We are all getting screwed over by the bosses. And as long as immigrants, especially undocumented immigrants, are forced to work at very low wages, it keeps our wages also low. So in fact, we all as workers, regardless of whether we're American born or immigrant, we all have a stake in fighting together for immigrant rights and for demands like a public sector living wage jobs guarantee, meaning everybody has the right for living wage jobs. And rather than let the bosses divide us, let's actually get united. And I just wanted to say that the whole starting point of all of this was how these guys who screw us over, including Adam Smith, they all speak in reasonable tones. They're funding a genocide. I mean, this guy, Adam Smith, he's funding a genocide. And then he talks, we need to be reasonable. We need to be calm. This is the things he says. He has called anti-war activists like us left-wing fascists and demanded that we be arrested. This is the kind of guy he is. So we have to refuse to accept their framing. We have to refuse to accept respectability politics and proudly fight for what is just and what is genuinely moral.
Yeah, I agree. I know you're busy. I know you're on a campaign trail. You've been working your butt off this week and way before. Before we go, is there any question that you're like, man, I wish Tony would ask me this before you came on?
I maybe just a question, because it is so pivotal right now, is, and I think we have generally touched it, but why is it so crucial for people to vote for our campaign? How does it link with winning any historic changes? Maybe I can just quickly talk about that. We see throughout history that we need uncompromised leadership, meaning leadership that is building unity among ordinary people, but is very clear about not selling out to the bosses and their parties. That is the main thing that we have here. Unfortunately, we are in a situation in America. This is a very unique moment in American history and politics, where if you look at the anger of working class people, it is huge. It is historic. The anger at the cost of living crisis is historic. The anger at the genocide is historic. But the leadership that's on offer is woefully inadequate by comparison. And so that is why it is so crucial that we build that kind of leadership. And that is why this election campaign is important, because if we can win this, as I said, the first ever revolutionary socialist elected to the US Congress, and I can answer the question that came up as well. It's a very important one, so I appreciate whoever's reminding me of that. That if we are able to elect the first ever revolutionary socialist to the US Congress, Tony, it is going to be nothing short of a political earthquake. It is no exaggeration to say, and I'm not saying this because it's my campaign. I'm saying this because it's the truth, because that is what we have seen in Seattle. To quote the Seattle Times, which is no fan of mine, they don't agree with anything I do. In fact, one of the editors told me one time that I disagree with everything you stand for, but you make good copy, is what he told me.
So you sell the paper for him.
Yes, he literally said that to my face. But what they said, they were forced to acknowledge the reality, and they said that after we won our first election in 2013, and everybody knew 15 was going to happen, because there was a roar of momentum towards $15 an hour in the city. It was unstoppable because we made it unstoppable. The Seattle Times said that our elected office, our socialist office, would be credited appropriately for coming out of nowhere and commandeering the city's political agenda. This is what they said. This is a quote from them. And they also said that in process-loving Seattle, $15 an hour is going to happen at lightning speed. And so, sometimes your class enemies give you the best compliments, so it was them acknowledging that, wow, we hate every moment of this, we don't want to give workers 15, but wow, this is not stopping. That is the kind of momentum there is potential to generate, but on a national level. It is so much at stake. This is, if we can get through to the November election, it will be the most electrifying race in the nation in November. It will, that much is for sure. But our hurdle right now is to get through to advance the November election. So everybody needs to vote. And as your viewer was saying, I have taken, when I was on the Seattle City Council, I took only the average worker's wage and donated the rest of my 6-figure salary, city council salary, after taxes into a solidarity fund that we then democratically decided. We gave it to strike funds of labor unions. We gave it to social movements like all the, for example, we were fighting for the Tax Amazon movement during the George Floyd rebellion. So a lot of my salary was put in the solidarity fund to use to build those movements. And I have pledged that if elected to Congress, I will do the same thing again, that I will take home only the average worker's wage and the rest will be used to build our office in Washington, D.C., build the movements nationally. This is what we're doing. And honestly, I have not heard of any other politician doing what we're doing. So we have so much at stake that we could potentially win for the American working class. There is potential to unite working people across red, blue, and purple states. And I can tell you that makes the billionaires extremely nervous. It's their nightmare. It's a nightmare scenario for them. Let's make their nightmare scenario come true.
Ooh, I love it. Can you do a exercise for me? Can we pretend, because I'm going to send this to as many people as I possibly can. Can we pretend that for some reason, the people that are going to vote for you tomorrow or tonight or whenever they decide to get to their mailbox, they're looking at this and they see you for the last time? Can you talk to them as to why they should vote for you? And then we will end the show. And for the listeners and the viewers, stick around because we have Alex Skill coming up. I hope I got the name right. I'm looking at his face. Did I get okay? But if you were talk to them as we close up as to why they should vote for you, that would be freaking amazing.
Look, if you agree with me that this system is simply not working for the majority of us, if you are fed up with the cost of living crisis, if you are infuriated at the fact that you go to work every day and you're busting your ass and you can barely pay your rent and keep a roof over your head and barely put food on the table for your family and your children, then I urge you to fight alongside me, because this campaign for Congress is based on a historic track record of my Seattle City Council office, where I used my office not to make backroom deals with other politicians, but to build mass movements of working people, to empower ordinary people to come into action themselves, to unite everyone across our differences, to build working class movements, to win the nation's highest minimum wage, to defeat billionaire Jeff Bezos and win the Amazon tax, defeated corporate landlords to win untold renters' rights. This campaign is based on that type of track record. It is our one shot this year in the midterm elections to turn politics upside down in Washington, D.C. And if you, like me, want to turn politics upside down in Washington, D.C., end the forever imperialist wars, fix the cost of living crisis, win free healthcare for all, tax the billionaires and multimillionaires to make this a different kind of society, then that's why I need your vote between now and Tuesday night. Please don't delay. Put that ballot in the ballot box. Make sure you circle the bubble on my name. Help us advance to the November election. And let's make the November election the most electrifying election of this year.
Thank you so much. And I want to ask you this while we're live. Will you come back so we could talk more about your story after the campaign?
Absolutely. I'm happy to come anytime.
That would be awesome. Because, I mean, as you could tell from the comments, everybody's like on fire because of the way you speak, the things that you're saying. I don't know any human being that would listen to this and say, and be telling the damn truth and say, oh, that sounds horrible. This, what you're talking about, sounds like a good damn life for me. And I wish that us as a society, when we hear the word socialist, that we didn't like compare it to like horrible shit like communism or all of that. But you've definitely have left a mark on us here in the Pacific Northwest. And I personally am looking forward to you going to Congress and doing this on the federal level. So thank you so much for coming to the show.
I really appreciate this time, Tony. It was a wonderful conversation. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so grateful, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Uh-oh, we got another guest. Hey, what's up, brother?
Hey, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on such short notice.
Yeah, no problem.
What do you think about that that interview with Kshama?
You know, she's a tough act to follow. She's very powerful, great speaker. She's been putting the work in her whole life. So, someone I really look up to. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad that we're doing this today. It's like I know she's a socialist and you're a socialist too. You're DSA, right?
Yeah, two socialists. I come out of the Democratic Socialists of America. I've been organizing with them for about 10 years, and I started doing housing justice work with them. So, it's we're in a really cool political moment right now. Where the center can't hold, and our country is splitting apart. But I think at least for the Democratic Party, there's an opportunity for people on the left like me and her. To gain power and to build power for the working class.
Awesome. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Alex? What you're running for? How can we support you? What's going on in your world, man?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yeah, I'm Alex Scheel. I have lived in Washington State for about 20 years. I joined the Army at 20, or I should say I grew up in San Diego in northern Michigan, and I joined the Army at 20, and that brought me out here to Joint Base Lewis McChord, which is in my district. Down here south of Tacoma. I was a human intelligence collector, and I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. And that was a really radicalizing experience for me because I spent both those deployments basically talking to people as an interrogator and running confidential informants. And you know, I had a little bit of sense of empathy where I really understood talking to these people, like where they came from and why they would choose to fight Americans or fight the new government or whatever. And I came out of the Army very anti-war, very anti-imperialistic. I helped restart the South Sound chapter of About Face Veterans Against the War a few years ago, which has been incredible, working with other anti-war veterans and finding that camaraderie again that I missed in the Army. And I got out of the Army and went to Evergreen State College in Olympia, and I studied agriculture and political science. And I've been in the craft beer industry for about 12 years now, brewed beer and cider, and have worked in distributors and grocery stores. I was proud to be a Teamster and a UFCW shop steward. So I learned a lot about unions and labor power, which is incredible on my journey along with being in DSA to socialism. I've been a precinct committee officer twice in the 27th legislative district. So learning about party politics and being involved with that was interesting. And earlier this year, some people I really respect asked me to run for Congress, which has been a very wild experience.
That sounds scary.
Very scary. Yeah, absolutely. It's a big deal. But you know, one of the besides DSA and socialism and left-wing politics having a big moment, my opponent, Marilyn Strickland, the incumbent, seems pretty vulnerable politically. She is a corporate Democrat. She's a very centrist Democrat.
Ooh, what does that mean?
So she votes in favor of corporations, right? She generally, even though like socially she might be progressive, fiscally and politically, she tends to vote for corporations. And most importantly, she votes for Israel and to send money to Israel. She's taken thousands and thousands, I think it's over $362,000 from Israeli linked PACs, political action committees. So she gets a lot of money from foreign influence and other corporations. I think I just saw she got over 90 grand, almost 100 grand from healthcare companies. So that's another thing I'm running on is Medicare for all. So basically, Yeah, go ahead.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah, it's rough. She's got this great personality of, I'm from Tacoma. I'm the daughter of a veteran. I've worked my way to the top, which is all true. But the problem is she doesn't come out of the working class like I do, and she's not she doesn't represent you and me. She doesn't represent working class people very well.
But I met her before, Alex. She's a really sweet lady.
Yeah, she is nice. But unfortunately, politics isn't just about being nice and sweet. Just like you're having the conversation earlier with Kshama, is, politics is about power and how we divide resources. We are in the most powerful, most wealthy country in history, and we have the biggest wealth disparity ever. And that is a policy decision. We talk about how policy documents are moral documents. So when our politicians like Strickland decide to send money to Israel to commit a genocide, or to give tax breaks to corporations instead of providing health care for your constituents, instead of providing housing, instead of fighting the affordability crisis, those are moral decisions that they're making. And she's making it for her donors and not for her constituents.
Yeah, I'm curious. And for everybody that's listening and watching, full disclosure, she's coming on the show next month. And because I do believe in giving everybody the full opportunity to kind of speak their piece. So I'm super glad that you here. And I don't want you to put words in her mouth, but I'm just curious. When I ask her, because I have to ask her this, because that's been the number one question that anybody has freaking sent. Like, why are you taking money from those PACs? Why are you funding the genocide? What do you think she is going to say as to her reason behind it?
Yeah. So specifically for Israel, she's going to say that Israel has a right to exist, and that there are greatest ally in the region, and stuff like that. But this has been clearly disproven over and over again. It's an apartheid state. We have to be really clear that Israel is a settler colonial society, right? It's white Europeans who came to Palestine after World War I, or even before World War I. But the Balfour Declaration after World War I, which was a British policy of sending European Jews to Palestine to colonize that place. And Zionism not only is Jewish, but it's also Christian. We could get into that side too. But they are displacing Native people. They're displacing people who've lived there for centuries. They're flat out committing a genocide, one of the greatest crimes that we all can agree on. They're kicking people off their land. They're destroying ancient olive groves. They're destroying ancient homes. They're destroying ancient churches and mosques and synagogues. It's and we have to be really clear that it is about racial supremacy and ethnic supremacy. And we, I think, as Americans, as working class people, whether you're white, black, or whatever, we also understand we have a history of settler colonialism in America. And that should inform us on how Israel is conducting themselves. Israel also acts as, I'm sure you've heard the term, wow, I just lost it. An air carrier, right? It acts as a base in the Middle East for American military to go in and out of and bomb other countries. After World War II, there was a huge anti-colonial movement around the world. And for America as an empire, it's really easy to control countries if they're small and they're split up and they're fighting each other. And there was a real threat in the Middle East of pan-Arabism, of all the Arabs getting together and say, you know what, we all have shared values and shared ethnicity and shared and politics, and we can band together and we can kick out the Europeans and kick out the Americans. Which is horrible for America and Britain, because there's the Suez Canal, right, where all this traffic flows through. And once Egypt tried to nationalize the canal, that's when England and France invaded Sorry, this has turned into a huge history lesson. I'm a
No,
huge,
I love it,
huge
man.
history nerd. Yeah. But basically, the point
I
is,
think in order for us to understand, especially for me, like I said before, I've never been political. So you breaking this down for me gives me a lot of context.
yeah. So we see that Israel bombs Syria, and it bombs Lebanon, and it bombs Egypt, and it bombs Palestine, and it bombs Iran, and it bombs Iraq, and all these countries. So it's basically it serves as another army or arm of our military to suppress Native Arabs and countries there. So that's why our political class supports Israel and their genocidal ethno-state, even though it's totally wrong and anathema to our values as Americans. It provides a political purpose.
Wow. So do you think that these people that are funding that, do you think that they see it the way that you see it? Or do you think that they're going to feed me a line of bullshit?
Yeah, they're gonna talk about anti-Semitism, and they're gonna talk about the Holocaust and how Jews deserve an ethno-state. And I don't believe anyone deserves an ethno-state. I don't believe that any country, whether it's white, black, Jewish, whatever, I believe in a pluralistic, democratic society that we live in, and we should all be neighbors and good neighbors to each other. So they're going to talk about the Holocaust and this stuff. And I think a good point to make is that this project started before the Holocaust, long before the Holocaust. And that in America, at least, anti-Semitism at a structural level doesn't exist. There's Nazis, there's racists, there's a lot of shitheads out there. But it's not the same as the pogroms or the Holocaust. And really what's happening in Palestine is a genocide, right? We have to keep saying that. They are killing people based on their faith, based on their race, and taking their land and creating what they call a greater Israel.
Dang, man, thanks for breaking that down. So when you were approached to run, what did that look like for you as far as making a decision? Because I think I heard that you quit your job to run for Congress full time.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people I trust and I've organized with for a long time, organized politically with, asked me to basically start this as a messaging campaign, basically saying hey, this is what DSA is doing. This is what About Face is doing. This is what, No Hate in Washington State is doing. This is what, all these different things, all of our connected struggles. This is what we're doing. But, I've got a lot of momentum, and this has turned into a real cool, serious campaign. And I think I have a shot of getting through the primary. Luckily the Republican is not really running a campaign. He doesn't even have a website. I'm not really sure what he's doing. So he'll still get a little bit of a vote. Chris Chung. He's a pharmacist in Lakewood. I think he ran for Federal Way mayor a long time ago. He's an outsider. He's going to get some of the vote, but hopefully I can get past him so I can move on to the general. And try to beat Strickland and get a socialist in office.
Well, shoot, why wouldn't you get past him? I mean, if I'm looking at the races, I see you grinding your ass off and creating a pretty powerful movement. Dude, I've had probably no lie, no bullshit, probably 30 people send me a message. Dude, you got to talk to Alex. Dude, you got to talk to Alex. Even it's a couple folks from TCD, a couple people I didn't even know. I'm just damn, man, what's so special about this guy? And then I started looking at your stuff, and I was just man, I kind of like that. And one of the things that jumped out to me was the fact that you are a combat veteran, and a combat veteran that is anti-war. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, everyone has different experiences in the military, vastly different. Some people are infantrymen getting blown up. Some people are, clerks, supply clerks. Everyone has a very different experience. For me, it was so impactful. So when you go to Iraq or Afghanistan or deploy and you're an intelligence and you're a collector, they tell you everyone knows something, right? Everyone has some intelligence value. Either they're the terrorist or their cousin is a terrorist or their brother and da 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 da. Kind of like cops, where cops run around and they go, everyone's breaking the law somehow. And it's beaten to your mind in training. But when I got there and I interrogated for JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, like the highest level of special operations. And they told me, all these guys are bad guys, or they know someone that's bad, da, da, da. And I sat there and I talked to people for hours on end and getting their stories and building rapport and getting to know them. And, I tell a story about this kid, Muthana, who was just a year older than me, spoke great English, so I didn't even need an interpreter. And we'd sit there and talk. And at the end of like almost a month, I was like, man, like, why are you, helping kill Americans? Why are you helping, me? Like, we're here supposed to help your country. And he said, when you invaded in the first month, you killed my father. Three of my uncles are in prison right now. You threw them in prison. We've got 4 hours of electricity every day. We don't have any clean drinking water. I was supposed to go to Baghdad University, but I can't do that now. You've destroyed my life and my country. And I sat there and thought, man, if I was in your shoes, I would do the same thing, right? I would fight against people who were destroying my country. And so now looking at Palestine and Israel and all these things, this violence around the world caused by our military and our allies, it's really hard for me to justify bombing schools and bombing kids and sending weapons to Israel. When I know that these Palestinians are in the same struggle as these Iraqis and Afghans, and that we as Americans are the bully. We as Americans have the largest military of all time, almost over $1 trillion we spend every year. And it goes to killing kids, and it's fucking bullshit. And I saw it firsthand, and unfortunately was a part of it firsthand. And now it's part of my life's mission to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. And I think going to Congress can be a big part of that.
Yeah, for some reason we are freaking sanitized of that. I remember when this whole war started and they bombed that damn school, and anybody that would say that Americans and Israel bombed a school, it would get kickback like it wasn't the truth. Why is that?
There's so much propaganda. I was a teenager in high school during 9/11. So my whole adult life, we've been at war. And in order to go to war, you have to dehumanize your enemy, and you have to use racism, and you have to you have to talk about their religion, and you have to create this narrative that they're terrorists and they're fighting unfair and they hate us for our freedoms and all this sort of crap. And after over 20 years of this, I think we understand that that's not the case anymore. And a lot of that is our media. A lot of that is, just the militarism we see in our society. I'm really uncomfortable every day when people thank me for my service. And I'm like, I know you're trying to say a good thing. You're trying to say a nice thing, but like, our service isn't honorable when we're going and killing kids and blowing up countries and making rich people richer. Like, let's be clear. This is not to serve Americans. It's to make money for our rich class and our politicians to keep their jobs.
Wow. How do you get the courage to say these things? And the reason that I'm asking is because, man, if I make a statement like, let's say I made a statement on LinkedIn and I said something along the lines of, well, yeah, there's a lot of freaking sexual assault in the military, and there's a lot of freaking racism in the military. Man, I got that bullshit because I was in the Marine Corps, right? I got that whole, there's no such thing as a black Marine. We're all green. We don't do that here. We have policies and procedures. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Were we in the same military? Do you get kickback? I guess my question is, do you get kickback for saying the things that you're saying?
I a little bit, but also I think most people understand that these are true things, right? I think, a lot of people want to say, they want to be proud of their service, right? Because it is hard being in the military. It is hard being a soldier or a Marine or airman or sailor, right? It sucks. It's a tough thing. So I think you want to be proud of that. But at the same time, every day I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, every single day, every person, if you were below, a colonel or whatever, if you were lower enlisted, they said, this is fucking bullshit. Why are we here? We're not changing anything. We're not winning the mission. We're not making this place better. This is dumb. Why are we here? And then when you get out of the military, there's a lot of revisionism, right? There's a lot of, you want to like justify what you did. Mm-hmm. But for me, I'm lucky to be surrounded by other veterans who are anti-war and anti-imperial and want to make sure that other people don't go through the shit that we went through and want to stop bombing, kids and brown people around the world. I'm lucky to be able to like speak my truth and I don't have to bullshit it. I don't have to like, Strickland, she's very proud of her father's service and talks a lot about that and brags about how much money she brings in for the troops and da. But like, we've had very different relationships with the military, obviously. And I'm not sitting here trying to bash people who join the military or because, we're basically kids when we join the military, most of us, or we come from poverty or there's a million reasons, but I wish people would learn the same lessons I did and bring that outside, bring that to their civilian career, and try to make the world a better place. So, I'm not scared to share or be proud of my anti-war values. It's who I am. And it's like literally the number one reason I'm running, is to make sure that these wars stop and bring the billions of dollars back home, billions of dollars every day we're spending on these wars. And we're losing horribly. Not that we should be winning or anything, but we're getting our ass kicked. We're still spending millions of dollars. And
body bags coming back.
I feel like they're misleading us about the numbers. It just came out that there's over 600 casualties reported so far. That includes wounded. But it's heartbreaking seeing, these kids getting blown up in Jordan and they, I don't know. It's just sad. And it's been, like I said, it's been my whole adult life that this has been going on. And because centrist Democrats have gone along with Republicans in this warmongering, because they vote to send money to Israel, because they vote to make the military bigger, the logical conclusion of that is somebody like Trump getting in power and using all this military to destroy the world and put us in a more dangerous situation.
It sounds like you and Kshama are saying the same thing.
We have very similar politics. And I think we're both fighters for the working class. I'm running not only on ending the war, but I'm running on Medicare for all, which, healthcare is a human right. I've lost, just last month was the 10th anniversary of my sister's overdose and death. And, if we had Medicare for all, if she could pay for her health, her pain management, she'd be alive today. My wife is a nurse. She sees the healthcare system every day. She's fighting for whole Washington to pass the Washington Health Trust, which is going to be universal healthcare in Washington State. So I'm very proud of her for doing that. But I think we can get Medicare for all at a national level, which would not only make everyone healthier and give people healthcare, but save money. The number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is healthcare bills. Like, why do we let healthcare companies make money off of our pain and suffering? It's bullshit.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I'm on my platform, I got a lot of stuff on my platform, but the third big one is housing for all. Housing is a form of healthcare. The rent keeps going up. Housing prices keep going up. And one of the first things I would do is repeal the Faircloth Amendment, which is a 1999 law that basically caps the amount of public housing that the government can build and pay for. And it's capped at the 1999 level. So that has to go immediately so the feds can help build nice, clean, affordable housing for people. So
Wow. The folks in the folks in the comment section, they want to know, what do you think your chances are against Adam Arafat?
Yeah, Adam started campaigning before me, and had a little bit more name recognition before me. I like Adam. We have some similar politics. He doesn't come out of organizing, though. He doesn't come out of politics. He just retired from the Army and is now working, I think, for the county. And he is a lot more moderate in certain ways. But I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen him out there canvassing. I haven't seen him at campaign events. I haven't seen him do social media. I just saw one of his signs for the very first time a couple of days ago. So I'm running a serious campaign. I'm running a serious challenge to Strickland. So we'll see what happens with Adam, but I'm glad that there's progressives in the race. I'm glad there's people that are out there trying to challenge the system.
Yeah. So there is you got a few people that are running in this race. It's what, like 5 people total?
Yeah. There's Strickland, me, Adam, the Republican who's not really there, and 2 other guys who I'm not sure what their deal is.
You're trying to play nice.
I'm trying to be nice. There's always cranks in every race.
Oh man. Well, hey, I don't think they're on social media, or they do any kind of research. No way. So who gives a shit, right?
Yeah.
No, man. Somebody in the chat mentioned that y'all's ground game is real, and I've been seeing it. I can tell that y'all are in those streets. I think y'all have joined forces quite a bit with Emily Klaus's gang a little bit, right?
Yeah. So I got I feel like my base is down in Olympia. A lot of people know Strickland, and a lot of people are much more progressive down there, which is great. Yeah, I have, I come out of organizing, so I already have a lot of these skills and a lot of knowledge running campaigns. And I've got just incredible volunteers. People are so motivated and pumped up. My heart swells when people come up to me and they're like, I'm voting for you. I'm telling my neighbors about you. What you're doing is great, because, I'm an average working class person. And so having people believe in me and putting their time and energy and money behind me is so motivating. And it makes you feel like I have a responsibility to win.
Yeah.
And make sure that their vote and their voice gets to Congress.
Yeah, it's awesome. Sounds like you're fighting a fight. So from what I'm hearing you say is that the reception of you as you've been campaigning, going door to door, has been pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing a big change in politics in America. Last month, the big wins, DSA wins in New York and Colorado and across the country, I think really has shown that democratic socialism is the future of the Democratic Party, if they want to survive, if they want to, keep any power. And also,
shit, Alex,
it's I don't know. I love being a part of a movement that's bigger than me. It gives me focus. It gives me knowledge. And it shows me that if people are going to fight for me, I want to fight for other people too. And not just, have a phony baloney job. Like I feel like a lot of these politicians view their service.
So can you tell us, for the folks that are listening, first watching, or be listening later, what is the DSA?
Yeah, it is an incredible movement of working class people, and it. I started in DSA 10 years ago. There was a apartment building down the road from me called the Tiki Apartments, and a outside developer from Seattle came in and bought the place and kicked everyone out. And in Washington State, the law is you have 20 days eviction notice, no fault eviction, right? 20 days to move your whole life and get out.
Mm.
These people were retirees. They were college students. They were poor people. They were people who lived there for 20, 30 years in these apartments. And somebody just came in and kicked them all out. So DSA and longshoremen and some other unions and community members, we went in there and helped everyone move out and find new places. And then we organized, got together, came up with a strategy, and went to city council and fought. And we got that 20 days changed to 60 days. No fault eviction notice. And that was my first real political win. And it was my first time knowing that, hey, if we all get together, if we work together as working class people, we can challenge the system and fight and win. I don't have to rely on a politician. I don't have to rely on somebody else. I can do this myself with my friends and neighbors and family. So to me, DSA is building power in a lot of different ways, and it's building working class power. We're fighting for workers. We're fighting for Medicare for all and housing and all these things that affect our society and our life. So it's not, the Democratic Party used to be a lot more left, and it used to be a lot more union focused and justice oriented and redistributing resources, to poor people and working class people. And now it's been bought off by corporations and people with money and lobbyists and this kind of consulting class. So to me, I see DSA as a way to build power without having to rely on all those dynamics and all that money and lobbyists.
Yeah. Why do you think that? And I'm asking this because this is kind of what I'm seeing, and I know that people are thinking it. But what I'm seeing, like the Republicans and also the Democrats, they're saying that y'all are communists. Why is that?
There's been,
they're saying it and they're thinking it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So to be honest, there are communists in DSA, but there's also it's a big tent, and it's all people who are trying to fight for a better future. But we've had 100 years of anti-communist propaganda in this country because the USSR and China and these other countries have a different model about how to arrange society. And that model, the model here in America is a very top-down model. If you have property, if you have money, if you have political influence, you get to make the decisions. And the rest of us don't get to make any decisions. We don't have democracy. We don't have buy-in. And you see that not only in politics, but you see that at work, right? If you're not in a union, you don't really get to choose what you do or how you do it or even how much you get paid. So right now the Democrats and Trump and the rest of them are scared that of our success, and they're going to say all sorts of stuff to slander us, and that's fine. And most people are seeing through it, and people are choosing us. They're tired of 50 years of neoliberalism, of the government taking the New Deal and the Great Society that was built up by the Greatest Generation and dismantling it, selling it off, deregulating, and letting money into politics. And we saw that starting with Carter and Reagan, and both parties moved to the right and embrace this neoliberal ideology, and it's got us to Trump. Trump is the greatest expression of this neoliberalism, right? So, so people aren't scared of the word communist anymore. The Cold War is over, and the USSR is gone. So there's not this communist boogeyman to scare people with anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting that's the way that they play it out. Because I full disclosure, when I first heard it, I'm like, oh man, what is this? Not saying that I was believing it, but I became really curious, and I'm just like, damn, I actually agree with a lot of the things that they're saying. And to be completely honest with you, I've noticed that some of the people that I've interviewed that, would say that they're moderate or even, Republicans, they'll say, yeah, they actually have a really good platform, and it would really help my family. And I'm just like, well, why the hell are you publicly saying otherwise? And it kind of reminds me of when you go to like Safeway or some place, you have those people, they're holding up those damn signs that are like, repeal the millionaire's tax. But then when you take them to the side and you start asking them questions about the millionaire's tax, they don't know either. They don't know a damn thing about it, or they know that millionaire's tax would actually help them. What are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious. As far as like the millionaire's tax.
Yeah, I think there's and I'm probably butchering it, but John Steinbeck had a quote about how we're all temporarily embarrassed millionaires. And I think in our as Americans, we believe, we've been told that if you work hard and make the right decisions and get a good job and education, that you'll be successful. And if you're really good, that you'll be a millionaire or a billionaire. But we know that's just not true. Like it's a mythology told to us so that we stay in place in that, and we don't advocate for ourselves, and we don't fight for our class, for our working class. So the people waving those signs and getting those signatures are usually paid people, paid signature gatherers. I've gathered signatures. I've never been paid for it. I gather signatures on stuff I believe in. Tenants' rights, and housing justice and all sorts of stuff. So, it's tough because most people don't have a lot of time and energy to devote to studying every issue and studying all the little details of bills and everything. So we rely on our politicians to represent us and to make good judgments. And unfortunately, most of them are not doing that.
Yeah, man, that's unfortunate. Yeah, because I always like it kind of makes me mad, but it makes me even sad for them, because it's like they're put in those situations to get the $25 or whatever it is that they're getting to stand out there. But it's like you're literally getting paid to promote propaganda that goes against your best interest. But I think that is what's happening in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really sad to see that people are so individualistic in our society that they'd rather take a job like that instead of working together to build power for themselves and their community. Yeah,
you as you've campaigned, what stories, if any, that are like sticking to you?
Housing is such a huge thing. I talk to people every day about how the rent is going up, or they can't afford to buy their house. They start a family, but they can't, or they want to start a family. I was just talking to someone the other day about, having children, and they're like, I keep putting it off because I can't afford childcare. Childcare is like almost more than housing. My husband and I both have to work, and even, working two jobs, we can't afford to live where we grew up. And so we got to move out, somewhere else. I think people are really pissed off that they see their money getting sent to Israel and sent to this war instead of staying here in Washington State. Washington State pays way more money out to the federal government than it gets back. So, I don't know. People are broke, and it keeps getting worse and worse. And as the straits in the Middle East stay closed, that means gas prices are going up, fertilizer prices and food prices are going up, chemicals that go into manufacturing and medicine go up. So our foreign policy has a direct impact on our life back here at home, in our domestic policy. So we need to end this war as soon as possible. And we need to take all that money, that this giant, massive behemoth of the military industrial complex, and bring it back home so people can stay and live in their communities and afford nice, healthy food and start families and get good jobs and live their lives instead of struggling every single day and seeing it get worse and worse every day.
What's wrong with that? That sounds like a good life, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I go to the grocery store. Every time I go to the grocery store, it doesn't matter if I buy a freaking bag of groceries or a cart full of groceries. I feel like I'm getting fucked every time.
Yeah.
And it's just freaking ridiculous. And I always think about, something that grounds me a little bit. Like, what about the people that can't afford to get this bag? And also in the back of my head, no lie, fucking, if this shit keeps happening, I'm not going to be able to afford it. So yeah, man, it's just incredible times that we live in. And I'm, aside politics and all of that, I'm grateful for people like you that are quitting their jobs and doing what you're doing to make changes, because we desperately need to have some change. And it doesn't seem like people are really waking up and seeing what the hell is going on. And sometimes I feel like Chicken Little, the damn sky is falling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because,
right.
I mean, I feel like we're being freaking lied to, hoodwinked, bamboozled. Like, no, the gas prices aren't freaking high. Oh yeah, the hell they are. Oh yeah, they are, man.
Yeah.
So no, man, thanks for what you're doing. And I guess I'm just curious, what does that look like? Let's say, you make it past the primaries, right? Which would be freaking amazing, right? I'm sure you'll be happy. And you actually beat Maryland. What does that look like from the time you freaking beat her, if you beat her, till you get into office? Like, what does that look like for you, and what type of changes should we expect as your constituents going forward?
Yeah, it's a long shot, and I recognize that it's a long shot, but this isn't just about me. This is about the whole movement. This is about fighting for everyone. And first thing that I want to use this campaign as a platform for all the other struggles that we're doing right now, whether it's DSA or anti-war stuff, or defeating these horrible right-wing initiatives about trans kids and stuff. But if I get into office, I'm going to immediately fight to repeal the Fair Cloth Amendment so we can start building houses. I'm going to join with other DSA and progressives that are getting office, and we're going to pass Medicare for all. We're going to make sure that people have the healthcare they need, and that they're not going bankrupt trying to get the healthcare they need. And I will do everything in my power to stop this war and end the genocide in Palestine and stop sending bombs there.
Ew, that sounds good. I was looking at something. Tony is getting real. Have not seen this as much with other candidates, and it's awesome. It says something about Alex. I agree with the last part. I don't agree with the first part, but I'm not going to fight you on that.
Tony's a great interviewer, so I'm enjoying this too.
No, man, I'll tell y'all, there are, and I'll be honest, this is like our after party kind of thing, because I really would later on soon want to be able, just like what Kshama, to do an interview based off of your life outside of the campaign. And I'll tell the people that are listening, this is not a show that you're going to get to where I'm freaking getting into the mud. Yeah, a little bit, because I'm a nosy dude. But this show didn't start because I want to be a political pundit. I have no desire for that. I care about mental health. I care about people. If we weren't in campaign season or whatever, me and Alex was texting, the questions that I would be asking wouldn't even be this. It would be the same as all my other friends that are in politics. How is your mental health? What are you doing as far as enhancing your mental health? Are you spending time with your family? Are you getting sleep? That's the shit that I really care about, is the people. And this stuff goes with taking care of the people, because there's so many people struggling right now, right? And I started this journey because same thing that Alex is saying, same thing that our last guest was saying. I had a sense that there were people fucking getting bought off because my family suffered because of it. You know, freaking my daughter has freaking pandas, and there was a bill that could have passed that could have fucking saved thousands of fucking kids in Washington state. But we were ignored by a fucking Democrat. Right? So, and I've always identified as Democrat, but I'm not willing to be one of those people that are like, oh, go them, even though they're screwing us. And so that's why I'm open to looking at different alternatives, talking to different people that have different ideologies, because that's the only way that it's going to work. And if we continue to do the same shit, we're going to get the same results. And unfortunately, our families, dude, we cannot continue to keep doing the same shit. You know, I look over at my wife and, you know, 1, 2 o'clock, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, she's talking to other freaking wives, other parents, other families. They're struggling. And it is the fact that they can't get Medicare, the life-saving treatments that they need for their kids. So yes, this subject, I'm very inspired by that, because I'm watching people like Alex and our previous guests. They're actually willing to fucking do something about it, because we can't keep doing it like this. We absolutely cannot. And so, man, I'm grateful for what it is that you're doing. And yeah, the whole Democrat, DSA, Republican, I don't give a shit who does it, as long as freaking it gets done. So yeah, dude, I freaking appreciate you. Is there anything else like that you're like, man, I just wish Tony would ask me this question going into this conversation?
Honestly, I'm glad you brought up your focus on mental health, because I like a lot of people struggle with mental health issues. And I lost my best friend to suicide almost 2 years ago. So it's incredibly important that, like you just said, that these things are tied together, and it's incredibly important that we're talking about it, and we're talking about real solutions and how to get there. And that, your point of like, this isn't a team sport. This isn't, just go Democrats or go Republicans. This is about real people in our lives. So thank you so much for having me on, Tony. I really enjoyed this.
Are you going to come back?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh man. Cause I really want to learn more about you, and see how we can further support what it is that you got going. So yeah, man, let me know how I can support y'all. And especially like when it comes to getting the message across. I know people are going to be in my DMs. Oh, what are you doing? I'm not saying that I'm freaking supporting a candidate. I'm freaking supporting the things that I give a shit about. And that is this stuff that we're talking about. So if you would close us out, I want you to get the last words. Same thing, man. Let's just pretend like this is the last time that the candidates or your future constituents, they're walking into the post office, wherever they got to go tomorrow to cast their ballot. And they're like, oh shit, here's Leaders Lead the podcast. We got Alex on here. Let's see what he's talking about. Can you get their vote for me really quick?
Absolutely. I'm Alex Shield. I'm running for Congress in Washington's 10th Congressional District. I'm an anti-war combat veteran. I'm running to end the war in Iran and the genocide in Palestine, and bring all that money back home for Medicare for all and housing for all, and to fight the affordability crisis. I think we're all ready for a change in Washington state and in our federal government, and I want to be a part of that change. I'm a proud democratic socialist, and I want to bring that politics to Washington. Thank you for being here, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Ooh, that was great. If you enjoyed this podcast, well, I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you're still here with us, what I want you to do is head over to your favorite podcast and streaming network and give us a download, subscribe to the channel, and also let us know what you think about the show. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for the things that you've done. Thank you for the things that you're doing. And especially thank you for the things that you're going to do, because I know that you're going to do something amazing. All right. Before we go, do me a quick favor, share this. Let us know what you thought about the show when you share it. And go to Leaders Lead the Podcast, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review. I know I'm asking for a lot, but I would greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. And who do y'all want to see next come on the show? I really, really love to hear that. And this is a good point. Don't use the USPS for your ballot. Use the Dropbox. I fucked up on that. So, all right. See y'all later.